Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. We always try to pick topics that are relevant and will help you guys improve yourselves and your careers. Well, I think we found a winner for you today.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
We're going to be deep diving into networking,
Networking in English.
specifically networking in English. So for those of you out there who are looking to advance your careers, get global opportunities, this one's for you. Now we're going to be going through a ton of different sources. We've got some really cool insights and actionable tips.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to go way beyond just, collecting business cards and kind of awkwardly standing around at an event.
Yeah, it's funny how many people see networking as kind of a chore. Like, I have to network.
Yeah.
But when you start to think of it as building genuine connections, and especially with English as this common ground, it's actually pretty exciting. I mean, the potential is just massive.
Yeah, it's almost like unlocking a secret level in a video game.
Yeah.
You suddenly have access to all these new people and opportunities.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's about those genuine connections.
Yeah.
It's not just like racking up contacts like, points on a scoreboard or something.
Yeah.
And speaking of points, the sources actually break down the benefits of networking into three key areas: career advancement learning and collaboration and personal branding.
Yeah, let's start with career advancement. One of the sources mentioned referrals are gold.
Ah, yeah.
Think about it. Would you rather hire someone you've never met or someone who comes highly recommended by a trusted colleague?
Oh, absolutely. A referral from someone you know and trust is so much more valuable than just a cold application.
Exactly. And when you're networking in English, you're casting a much wider net, right? You could get a referral from someone in London and Tokyo, Sydney. I mean, the possibilities are kind of endless.
It really does amplify the impact, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not just about getting ahead in your career, though, right? There's this whole other side of networking that's about learning and collaboration.
Absolutely. One of the sources highlighted the power of cross-cultural exchange. Imagine you connect with a marketing professional from another country.
Oh.
You might learn about completely different advertising strategies or consumer trends that are specific to their market.
So you're getting like a crash course in global business without ever leaving your city.
Yeah, and that can spark some really interesting collaborations, too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to see how this goes way beyond just handing out resumes at a job fair.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And then the final benefit that the sources highlight is personal branding. By consistently engaging in English, sharing your insights, and being visible in your field, you actually start to build this reputation as a knowledgeable and connected professional.
Yeah.
So it's like leveling up your expertise on a global scale.
It really is. It really is. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. I know that even thinking about networking, especially in a second language,
Yeah.
it can make some people want to just curl up in a ball. Any advice from the sources on how to boost that confidence before you kind of dive in head first?
Yeah, one of the sources had a really interesting take on this. They suggested thinking of your introduction not as an elevator pitch, which can feel kind of salesy,
Right.
but as a curiosity spark.
Ooh, I like that.
So it's less about selling yourself and more about kind of igniting a genuine conversation.
Right.
And they even gave a specific structure
Okay.
that works really well in an international setting. So start with a simple intro, like, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, nice to meet you." Then highlight one specific skill or project that you're really passionate about.
Okay.
But here's the key. You frame it as a question to spark that curiosity. So instead of saying, "I'm an expert in digital marketing," try something like, "Have you noticed how much digital marketing has changed in the last year?"
That's so clever. It kind of invites the other person to share their thoughts. And suddenly you're not just talking at them, you're having a conversation.
Exactly. And one of the other sources had another great tip for building confidence. Practice key phrases in English, but not just generic ones.
Right.
They suggested focusing on phrases that express genuine curiosity and invite the other person to share their experiences. Things like, "What brought you to this event?" or "What's been the most rewarding part of your work lately?"
It's almost like you're giving them a gift. You're giving them the chance to talk about themselves.
Exactly.
Which everybody loves to do. I'm already feeling more confident just thinking about these tips.
Me too.
But I think the biggest fear a lot of people have is that they need to be like a social butterfly. They need to work the room, talk to everybody.
Right.
Is that really the case?
One of the sources addresses that head on.
Okay.
They actually recommend the opposite approach.
Really?
Instead of trying to talk to everyone, set a goal of having just 2 meaningful conversations.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That seems almost too easy.
It might sound counterintuitive, but think about it. If you walk into an event feeling pressured to talk to everyone, you're probably going to end up feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. But if you focus on having just two genuine conversations, you can relax, you can be present, and really make those connections count.
It's like the difference between frantically skimming a book
Yeah.
and really savoring every word. Love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so we've covered the why and the how to feel more confident. But now, where can you actually find these networking opportunities? And I think we want to go beyond the obvious, right? Conferences are great, but where else can you make these connections happen?
You are absolutely right. Conferences can be great, but sometimes they can feel a bit too formal,
Yeah.
a bit like a fish market, everyone trying to sell themselves.
Right.
The source has actually highlighted some really interesting alternatives that you might not have considered.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me about these hidden networking gems.
Well, one that stood out was meetups and local groups.
Okay.
What's cool is that even local events often use English as the common language,
Ah, interesting.
especially if they're focused on tech business or international topics.
So even in your own city,
Huh.
you can practice your English and expand your network at the same time.
Precisely.
Two birds, one stone.
Exactly. And you know that website meetup.com?
Yeah.
It's a treasure trove of networking gold.
Okay.
You can find groups based on your industry hobbies or even just your desire to practice English with other professionals.
I've heard of it, but I've always been a bit hesitant to actually go to one of those events.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like you need to be super outgoing and already knew a lot of people.
That's a common misconception. The beauty of meetups is that they're designed to be casual and welcoming.
Okay.
Plus, one of the sources had a brilliant tip for feeling more confident for volunteer to give a short presentation or lead a discussion.
Wait, really? Isn't that kind of terrifying?
It can be, but think of it as a superpower move.
Okay.
First, it forces you to prepare, which helps with your English fluency.
Right?
Second, it instantly positions you as a thought leader and sparks conversations.
Oh.
People will naturally come up to you afterwards to chat.
That's a great point. It's like going from zero to hero in one fell swoop.
Exactly. And speaking of connecting with people, we can't forget about the elephant in the room, LinkedIn.
Ah, yes. LinkedIn, the virtual networking hub. I feel like it's impossible to escape its gravitational pull these days.
It's true, and while it can feel overwhelming, one of the sources offered a really refreshing perspective.
Okay.
They said instead of seeing LinkedIn as this giant job board, think of it as a massive cocktail party.
Okay.
You wouldn't walk into a party and start handing out resumes to everyone, would you?
That would be awkward, to say the least.
Right. The same principle applies to LinkedIn. It's about engaging in conversations, sharing your thoughts, and building relationships.
Good.
The source actually recommended treating your LinkedIn profile like a magazine.
Interesting.
What kind of articles would you feature? What insights would you share?
So it's about curating content, showcasing your expertise, and making people want to read what you have to say.
Precisely. And one of the sources shared a brilliant tip for getting noticed. Write personalized connection requests.
Okay.
Instead of just hitting the connect button, take a moment to mention something specific that caught your eye on their profile.
Yeah.
It could be a shared interest, a recent article they published, or even just a common connection.
It's like saying, hey, I see you,
Yeah,
I value your work, and I'd love to connect on a deeper level.
exactly. And speaking of connections, one of the sources highlighted the importance of tapping into professional associations and alumni networks.
Yeah.
These groups are like pre-made networking gold mines, often with an international reach and a strong culture of collaboration.
I've definitely seen the power of alumni networks. People love connecting with fellow graduates.
It's an instant bond.
Yeah, it's true.
And professional associations are fantastic for staying updated on industry trends, attending events, and connecting with people who share your professional interests, often from all over the world.
Makes
So we've talked about the where, now let's get down to the how. You found the perfect event or connected with someone interesting on LinkedIn.
right.
How do you actually strike up a conversation, keep it flowing, and make a memorable impression?
That's the million-dollar question. Because let's be real, sometimes even saying hello can feel like a major hurdle, especially in a second language.
Yeah.
What did the sources have to say about navigating those first few minutes of a conversation?
You know, it's funny, even when you know networking is important, there's still that little voice in your head that whispers,
yeah.
what if I freeze up?
What if I say something stupid?
What if they just think I'm wasting their time?
Right, all those fears.
Did the sources offer any wisdom for silencing that inner critic?
I hope so, because I need it.
They did. One of the sources talked about the power of reframing those negative thoughts.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, try to shift your attention to what you're genuinely curious about.
Okay, so instead of thinking, what if I mess up? I should be thinking, what can I learn from this person?
Think of it as a treasure hunt. You're looking for those nuggets of insight, those unexpected connections, those aha moments that make the whole conversation worthwhile.
It's like turning networking into a game.
Yeah.
I like that. But what about the language barrier?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people worry about making mistakes or not being able to express themselves clearly in English.
And that's completely understandable, but one of the sources emphasized that most people in international settings are incredibly understanding.
Right.
They're not expecting you to be a Shakespearean orator.
Right.
They just want to have a genuine conversation.
So it's more about clear communication than perfect grammar.
Exactly. And one of the sources had a fantastic tip for situations where you're struggling to find the right word.
Okay.
Instead of getting flustered, simply describe what you mean.
Okay.
For example, if you can't remember the word entrepreneur, you could say someone who starts their own business.
That's so simple,
Yeah.
yet so effective. It takes the pressure off trying to remember every single vocabulary word. But what about those times when you just completely blank on what to say? Is there a secret formula for keeping a conversation flowing smoothly?
One of the sources actually suggested borrowing a technique from improvisational comedy.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and.
Yes, and.
It's all about building on what the other person says, adding your own thoughts and experiences.
Okay.
For example, if someone says, I'm really interested in the future of artificial intelligence, you could respond with, yes, and I'm fascinated by how it's changing the healthcare industry.
So you're acknowledging their point and then adding your own layer to the conversation.
Right.
It's like a collaborative storytelling exercise.
Exactly. And remember, active listening is just as important as speaking.
Right.
Use those verbal cues. That's interesting. Tell me more. I hadn't thought about it that way to show that you're fully engaged.
It's like you're saying, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm genuinely curious about what you have to say.
Yeah.
But what about after the conversation is over? How do you turn those initial chats into lasting connections?
One of the sources had a really simple but powerful strategy for this.
Okay.
Send a follow-up message within 48 hours of meeting someone.
Okay.
And they emphasize the importance of making it personal.
Okay.
Mention something specific you discussed, offer to share a relevant article, or simply express your gratitude for the conversation.
So it's not just a generic, nice to meet you. It's a way of showing that you were paying attention and you value the connection.
Exactly. And one of the sources had another great tip for staying top of mind. Be a giver, not just a taker.
Okay.
If you come across an article, a job posting, or an event that you think someone in your network would find valuable, share it with them.
It's like making a deposit in that relationship bank account we talked about earlier.
Precisely. And remember, networking is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
It takes time to cultivate those relationships and see the benefits unfold.
Right.
But one of the sources made a point that I found incredibly inspiring.
Okay.
They said that when you approach networking with genuine curiosity and a willingness to connect on a human level, it stops feeling like a chore and start to feel like a natural extension of who you are.
It's like you're not just building a network, you're expanding your world.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the most rewarding part of it all. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
The next time you find yourself in a networking situation, take a deep breath, remember all the amazing insights we've uncovered from your sources, and approach it with an open mind and a genuine desire to connect. You might just be surprised by the doors that open and the opportunities that unfold.
Beautifully said. Thanks for taking us on this journey. And to all our listeners out there, remember, you don't have to be a master of small talk or a social media guru to be a successful networker. It's about taking small steps, practicing consistently, and being open to new connections. Who knows, the next conversation you strike up could lead to a life-changing opportunity. So go out there, embrace the power of networking in English, and watch your world expand.